What if the land you spent your whole life protecting was hiding a secret that could either save you or destroy everything you loved? Marta Calder woke before the pale morning light touched the valley. She pulled her coat tight around her shoulders as if the cold could be pushed away by sheer will. At 57, she had learned to endure almost anything, but this winter felt different. It pressed deeper. It carried weight. It carried fear. The ranch stretched across the low valley like a tired old friend. Patchy pastures, crooked fences, a corral that once held hundreds of cattle but now sat nearly empty, and the house, its sagging porch, still echoing the memories of 3 generations who had watched sunsets from its boards. Marta's boots sank into the frosted dirt as she walked the yard. She checked feed, water, fences. Routine kept her sane. Routine kept her from thinking about the letter tucked under a dishcloth on her kitchen table. 3 weeks. Pay in full or lose the ranch. The words felt like a verdict. She had already sold half her herd. The pickup barely ran, and there was no one left to help her. But Marta was stubborn in the quiet way only ranchers could be. Her father had taught her that land remembers who tends it. So she pushed on, day after day, even when her hands ached and her bones protested with every cold morning. The storm came out of nowhere. It rolled over the valley with a roar that rattled the barn and made the windows shake in their frames. Rain hammered the roof like fists. The wind dragged the night across the land with a force she had not felt in years. Marta lay awake, listening to every groan of the house, every whistle of wind through the broken window frame in the barn. By dawn, the world felt washed raw. Mud clung to her boots as she stepped outside. Water pooled near the corral. Fallen branches littered the yard. She sighed, ready to start the long day of repairs, when something strange caught her eye. A dark opening in the hillside. Where a shallow draw had been just yesterday, the storm had torn the earth away, leaving a jagged black mouth in the soil. Cold air drifted out of it, sharp and metallic, as if it came from a deeper place untouched by sunlight. Marta froze. She had walked this land her entire life. She knew every slope, every scrub bush, every stubborn patch of rock that never seemed to move. But this cave, had never been there before. "What in the world?" she whispered. Something inside her shifted, a small pull in her chest, like a compass pointing towards something she had ignored for too long. She should have walked away. Storms sometimes opened sinkholes. The ground could be unstable. But she didn't see danger first. She saw possibility. The kind she had not felt in months. She fetched her father's old pick, an oil lamp, and a length of rope. The weight of the tools steadied her nerves. Then she stepped into the cave. The walls closed in quickly. Damp stone brushed her shoulders. The air smelled of earth, old smoke, and time buried deep. The passage bent sharply, then widened. Her lamplight flickered across stalactites that hung like sharp teeth in the dark. Then she saw it. A fire circle. Old. The charred wood around it crumbled at her touch. Someone had been here before. Her heart thudded. As she walked deeper, she found more signs. Scratches carved into the rock. Broken timbers, rusted bits of metal. And then, half buried in clay, a narrow piece of iron rail. Tracks. Mining tracks. Her breath caught. She followed the remains of the rail until it disappeared into a hollow chamber, cut by hands long gone. The ceiling stretched high above her, swallowed in shadow. Tools rotted into the dirt. Wooden beams sagged under the weight of a century. Marta knelt beside a broken frame, brushing soil from a rusted spike. She remembered the stories her father once told her. Men had passed through these hills chasing veins of gold and silver. But no one had ever said anything about a mine on Calder land. The thought sent a jolt through her, something between hope and fear. She returned to the surface with shaking hands. The ranch looked different when she stepped back into the light. Sharper somehow, more alive. The debt notice on her kitchen table still waited to crush her, but the panic that had haunted her for months now flickered with something new. Something dangerous. Hope. Over the next days, Marta returned to the cave again and again. She worked like a woman possessed, clearing dirt and fallen rock, testing old wooden supports, finding hints of something deeper. The routine gave her strength she thought she no longer had. Each strike of the pick steadied her. Each foot she dug reminded her that she was still fighting. Then came the moment that changed everything. On a cold Tuesday afternoon, her pick hit something that wasn't stone. The sound rang through the chamber like a bell. She dropped to her knees, pushing dirt aside with trembling hands, revealing the flat corner of something metal. A chest, iron-bound and heavy, sealed tight with rust and time. Her breath stilled. She pried it open. Inside lay coins wrapped in old cloth, bars the color of river sand, and stacks of papers bound with brittle twine. Maps, ledgers, deeds. The air in the chamber seemed to tilt as she traced the faded seals stamped into the old parchment. This wasn't just treasure. This was proof. Records of a mining company that once operated in the valley. Proof of rights tied to the very land she had spent her life tending. Proof that could save her ranch. Her fingers hovered over the gold, but she knew, deep down, it was the papers that mattered. This chest held power. Power people would kill for. And now she had it. Marta wrapped the chest in canvas and hid it deep in the brush behind the cave. Her heart pounded with fear and hope fighting inside her chest. She knew one thing for certain as she walked back toward the house. The cave had not just revealed a secret, it had changed her future. And the valley would not stay quiet for long. What do you do when the truth that can save your life also paints a target on your back? The morning after Marta found the chest, the valley felt different. Quiet in a way that made her skin prickle. Word traveled fast in small towns, even when no one had said a single thing out loud. People sensed change. They felt it like a shift in the wind. Marta kept the chest hidden under thick brush behind the cave and tucked the documents deep inside her house under loose floorboards. But hiding treasure was one thing. Hiding the way a person carried themselves was another. And Marta, without meaning to, walked a little straighter now. A little firmer. Hope had a weight, and people noticed when someone started carrying it. The first sign came 3 days later. Riders. 2 of them. They lingered on the ridge just beyond her fence line. They didn't enter her land, not yet. They just watched. Quiet. Measuring. Waiting. Marta didn't approach them. She didn't need to. Their presence said enough. Something was stirring. She went into town the next morning. She wore her best coat and carried the documents wrapped in an old cloth beneath her arm. Every step toward the lawyer's office felt heavier than the last. She pushed open the worn wooden door, and Eleanor Pierce, sharp-eyed, steady-handed, looked up from her desk. "Marta," she said softly, "you look like a woman carrying a storm." Quote. Marta set the documents on the table. "I need your help." Eleanor unfolded the papers, scanning the brittle maps, the faded seals, the lists of shipments and land agreements. She read them once, then again. Then her eyes lifted. "You understand what this means?" "I need to save my ranch," Marta said simply. Eleanor nodded. "These records are powerful, but power draws attention. And attention draws trouble. If we file these, people will talk. People will ask questions. People will come." "They already have," Marta answered. Eleanor closed the file gently. "Then we move fast." The days after the filing were a blur. Marta worked her land during the day and kept her rifle close at night. Riders watched from the hills. Voices whispered in the general store. Some people looked at her with curiosity. Others with envy, and a few with something sharper. One night, as the sun sank, a tall, thin man appeared near her corral. He leaned casually against her fence, tipping his hat with a smile that didn't touch his eyes. "Evening, Miss Calder. Name's Malcolm Crow." "Heard you've been busy in those hills." Marta stiffened. "What do you want?" Crow's smile widened. "Just conversation. Seems like you might have found something valuable, something that folks in this valley might like to share." Her grip tightened on the latch of the barn door. "This is my land." "Land don't mean much without protection," Crow said, shrugging lightly. "A woman alone can't hold a secret like that. Men talk. Greed grows. Things happen." Marta met his eyes. "You can leave my property now." Crow studied her for a long, slow moment. Then he tipped his hat again. "We'll talk again soon." He walked away with the calm of a man who thought he already owned the outcome. The trouble didn't wait long. A few nights later, Marta woke to the sound of barking. She grabbed her rifle and ran to the porch. Smoke stung her eyes before she even saw the flames. Her barn, her old weathered barn, burned bright in the dark, fire curling into the sky like a hungry creature. "No!" she cried, sprinting toward it. She threw the doors open and drove the frightened horses out, shoving and shouting until they stumbled into the yard. Flames roared behind her. Heat burned her face as she backed away. The roof groaned, then collapsed in a shower of sparks. By the time the fire died, half the barn was gone. Marta stood trembling, fists bloody from clawing at wood and rope. She knew exactly who had done it, and why. Crow wasn't warning her anymore. He was beginning his war. Sheriff Boone arrived at dawn, his face grim. "Tracks all over," he said after checking the ground. "Too many to trace. But Marta, you know who's behind this." "I know," she said quietly. Boone crossed his arms. "You could walk away. You could sell. No shame in it." Marta looked out over the land she had bled for, worked for, sacrificed for, the land that held her family's history, the land that had held her through every storm. "No," she whispered. "I'm not leaving." Her neighbors came to help rebuild the barn, some out of kindness, others out of curiosity. Thomas Kearney hammered planks with steady hands. Ruth Alvarez brought food for everyone. Even her boys came to sweep debris and haul wood. But with every nail driven, Marta felt eyes on her, watching, waiting. Crow wasn't done. She knew that as surely as she knew the wind on her skin. 2 days after the barn was rebuilt, a young rider intercepted her on the road to town. His eyes were nervous, his horse skittish. Miss Calder," he stammered. "Mr. Crow sent me. He wants a meeting. Tomorrow. By the mesa. Noon." "And if I don't come?" The boy swallowed hard. He said things will get worse." Marta rode home with her jaw tight and her heart heavy. She sat at her kitchen table that night, staring at the lamp flame as it flickered. She couldn't avoid Crow forever, and she wouldn't face him alone. The next morning, she found Eleanor Pierce and Sheriff Boone. Both agreed to stand with her. "You need witnesses," Eleanor said, "and protection." So at noon the next day, Marta rode to the mesa with Boone beside her. The wind whipped across the flat land as Crow waited with 2 armed men at his back. Crow smiled when he saw her. "Miss Calder," he said calmly, "let's talk business." "No," Marta said. "Say what you came to say." Crow's smile dropped. "Sell me the land," he said. "Sell me the rights. Sell me everything you found, and you walk away alive and comfortable. If you don't, you'll lose the ranch one fire at a time." Marta stared at him, her voice steady as stone. "This ranch isn't for sale." Crow's face twisted. "Then you better pray the law protects you," he muttered. "Because when it doesn't, I will come." He rode away with his men following, dust rising behind them like smoke, and Marta felt the truth settle heavy in her chest. He meant every word. That night, danger crept even closer. Tools went missing. Fence lines were cut. Cattle chased into ravines. Shots fired from distant ridges. Warnings meant to shake her. But Marta did not bend. She stood firmer, stronger, and when Eleanor filed the claim in court, the valley exploded in whispers. Everyone wanted a piece of what Marta had found. Everyone wanted to know what she would do next. But Marta kept one truth close to her heart. She would not surrender the land, not for gold, not for fear, not for anyone. What happens when a woman who has spent her whole life enduring finally decides she will not endure anymore? The valley was tense in the days leading up to the court hearing. It felt as if the land itself held its breath. Even the cattle moved restlessly, as if sensing the storm that was coming. Marta rode her fences at dawn and dusk, rifle strapped across her saddle, watching the distant ridges where strangers sometimes appeared like shadows. Malcolm Crowe, however, stayed out of sight, which only made Marta more uneasy. Men like Crowe did not disappear. They planned. The night before the ruling, the ranch felt too quiet. The wind had died. The dogs paced. Marta sat at her kitchen table with the lamp low, the letter from the judge in front of her. She ran her fingers along the words she knew by heart. Tomorrow she would stand in court and defend her land. Tomorrow she might win or she might lose. But Crowe would not wait for tomorrow. The dogs growled first. Low, warning. Marta blew out the lamp and grabbed her rifle, stepping to the window. Moonlight washed the yard in silver. At first, she saw nothing. Then movement. 3 men creeping toward her barn, torches in hand. Her heart slammed against her ribs. Fire. Again. Not tonight, she whispered. She stepped outside, rifle raised. Not one step further, she called. The men froze. One laughed in a sharp, mocking way. You can't guard this place forever, old woman. Drop the torches. Instead, one lifted a pistol. The shot cracked the night. Marta fired back, hitting his arm. He dropped the torch and stumbled. Her dogs lunged, snarling and snapping, driving the men back. They fled into the darkness, cursing as they went. Marta stood shaking, the rifle hot in her hands. She had fought back, really fought back, for the first time. And the valley would hear of it by morning. Sheriff Boone arrived at sunrise, grim-faced and quiet as he examined the scene. Crowe's tightening the noose, he said. He's not waiting on the law. I won't be pushed out, Marta answered. Boone nodded once. Then we stand with you. The courthouse was packed that afternoon. Ranchers, farmers, townspeople, everyone wanted to witness the decision. Marta walked to the front of the room with Eleanor Pierce beside her, her hat clutched tight. Crowe sat on the other table, smug and certain. His city lawyer whispered in his ear, smiling like a man who thought he owned the outcome. Judge Hall entered. The crowd fell silent. After a long moment, she spoke. After reviewing the documents, the testimony, and the historical records, the court recognizes the Calder mining documents as authentic. Provisional mineral rights and full land protection are hereby granted to Miss Marta Calder. A ripple of noise swept the room, gasps, murmurs, surprise. Marta closed her eyes, relief washing through her like warm sunlight. Crowe shot to his feet. This is a mistake, he snapped. You can't hand that kind of wealth to one woman. Sit down, Mr. Crowe, Judge Hall warned. He sat, but his eyes burned with rage. It was over. Or it should have been. Marta rode home with her heart lighter than it had been in years. But relief turned to dread the moment she reached her gate. It stood open, forced open. The corral was trampled. A horse bled from a cut on its flank. Chickens scattered across the yard. And on the ground near the steps lay one of Ruth Alvarez's boys, bruised and bleeding. They came, he whispered. 3 of them. They said they'd be back. Said next time they'd finish it. Marta's breath shuddered out of her. This was no longer about land. This was war. She sent for help. By midnight, her allies gathered around her kitchen table. Thomas Kearney, Ruth and her sons, Sheriff Boone, even a few ranchers who had never spoken kindly to her before, and Eleanor, gripping a revolver she had never fired in her life. He'll be back tonight, Boone said. He lost in court. Men like Crowe don't let go. Then we stand together, Marta said. We make our line here. So they prepared. Thomas and the boys took the ridge. Boone watched the corral. Ruth kept the horses calm. Eleanor stayed near Marta, shaking but determined. They waited. The attack came an hour before dawn. Horses thundered down the ridge. Torches lit the night. Men hollered, firing wildly into the dark. but Marta and her allies were ready. Boone fired the first warning shot. "This is Calder land," he shouted. "Turn back!" Crow's voice sliced through the chaos. "Burn it! Burn everything!" Gunfire erupted. Marta fired from the porch, steady and fierce. Thomas's shotgun boomed from the fence line. Ruth's boys darted between shadows, driving cattle to safety. Smoke filled the air. Horses screamed. Men cursed. Then she saw him. Malcolm Crow rode through the smoke like a specter, pistol raised, eyes wild with hate. He charged straight for her. Marta stepped out from cover, rifle aimed. Her breath went still. "End this, Crow!" she yelled. He sneered. "You don't have it in you!" She pulled the trigger. Crow's horse reared, throwing him hard to the ground. His pistol flew from his hand. He lay in the dirt, stunned, defeated. His men froze. Then they fled. Silence fell across the ranch, broken only by the crack of a dying torch and the wheezing breath of a wounded horse. Boone stepped beside her. "It's over." Marta lowered her rifle. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from everything she had carried for too long. Eleanor's voice was soft. "You saved your land." Marta looked out at the valley as the sun rose, gold and warm, over the battered ranch. Everything she had fought for, everything she had endured, everything she had lost and reclaimed. It all lay before her, shining. "This ranch," she whispered, "remembers who tends it." And now it would remember her forever.